My name is Marcel O'Gorman. I'm a professor at the University of Waterloo and founding director of the Critical Media Lab. And the lab is really a place to look at impacts of technology on society and the human condition, the more than human condition. And so if something like generative AI comes up, we have to look at it and try to better understand it and look at not just at its impacts, but how it works and how we might better inform the public about it and possibly inform policy about it. If I had to describe generative AI to someone who's learning about it the first time, I would tell them that it's a tool for automation, that it automates certain kinds of human abilities, like writing, like creating pictures, or even editing pictures. Those are the two basic tasks that it does. But it does that with access to massive amounts of data. It requires massive amounts of data to use it. So what it's doing is it's actually drawing on an entire massive pool of the human record and of things that already exist in order to create something new, generate something new. Generative AI is different from other technologies, I think, in very subtle ways. It is a tool for automation, but it's automating processes that are very important to humans, something like language, for example, or writing, which have actually been used to define what a human is over and against other animals, for example, which may be false, but these are concepts that are very important to us, and generative AI is challenging those concepts so that it's making us rethink what it means to be able to write, what it means to be able to communicate, what it means to be able to imagine an image and represent it in the real world somehow. So those are all very essential human processes for some people, and generative AI is challenging us. So we're looking at, why does it matter if a machine generates an interesting poem rather than a human? It forces us to rethink some of those human processes, like writing poetry or drawing a picture, and to question what is human about those things. It doesn't matter that it's human. So I think that that's what has made generative AI feel a little bit different than other innovations. I think what prevents people from building a deeper understanding of generative AI is, well, there are many things. The first one, I think, is basically a lack of understanding of what it is or how it works. And I think generative AI is very much a solution without a problem. So it's this thing, there's a lot of finances being poured into, a lot of attention around it, and people look at it and they say, I don't know what am I going to do with this thing? I don't know. So that would prevent someone from using it because they just don't know what to use it for. Another problem is, I think, mistrust. I think that there's a lot of mistrust about this thing, because people think it might be coming to take away their job, or it might be coming to replace humans, or they might just mistrust the companies who are developing these things because they think that it's just a giant money-making scam, and they are being asked to adapt to it or adopt it and pay for it, and they have no reason to or desire for such a tool. Why do people need to develop a deeper understanding about generative AI? This question is very hard for me because the answer to me is they have to develop a deeper understanding because it's coming whether they like it or not. There is too much capital investment in generative AI, too much national investment in it to ignore it. It's going to happen, and if you don't adopt it, find some way to adopt it and understand it, you're going to have to adapt to it in some way. I know that sounds threatening. It could happen at a very low level, but I think it's important for people to understand it. It is also a technology that very much reflects power dynamics globally, between haves and have-nots, and so on. And so I think it's important to understand it, because if this thing is going to be adopted very broadly, you need to know that it's going to benefit very small groups of people very much, and for the rest of the people it may not, and it may actually make their lives worse. And so understanding, is it a way to prevent some possible poor adoptions of this technology. What generative AI will do in the near future is to continue to surprise people, and I think that that is the most interesting part about generative AI, is its capacity for surprise. It's just like generative art. It's interesting when it surprises you by doing something you didn't expect or you didn't know it could do. This is a very vague answer, but surprise is very much an important component of generative AI when it surprises you into believing that it's doing something you thought only a human could do. That's kind of the point. And I think that it's going to continue doing that. It's going to get better and better at doing that. Now, some surprising things I would really like to see generative AI do would be to create the capacity to better understand non-human animals, for example, or possibly communicate with them or understand how they communicate with one another, possibly for the sake of conservation or for the sake of mitigating species at risk, something like that. So that's a wish list. That's not what I expect to happen, but that's my answer. If someone wants to learn more about generative AI, the first thing I would tell them to do is try it out. It's easy to access, but I would say try it out with someone else and talk about it as you're trying it out and play with it together with other people, preferably a younger person if you're my age, or if you're, anyway, try it out with a younger person and see what someone who's not like you, who's younger or not like you in general, would do with this thing. I think it's very important to just experiment with it and get into it. There are resources online to learn about it. They're not necessarily great, but I think you can find examples of how people are using it. It's a good idea to look at how artists are using generative AI, and I think to look at what artists think about generative AI is a very important way of understanding what it's doing, what it means culturally, what it means intellectually, and so on.